So who's actually made a movie beforehand, just to get a feel? Cool. All right, we've got a couple. I'm going to be doing it using an iPad, but as we sort of go through, there's lots of other stuff, so don't try and think about this as what you can do with an iPad. It's more, this is what you can do when you're making a movie in with a class. So what we're going to be looking at is making what I consider a purposeful, engaging movie that can be assessed. So purposeful is in when we're doing anything in with the classes, we need to tie it into outcomes. It needs to have something beyond just the entertainment value. Engaging, the kids make, and I've done this with students from 8 to 30 years old, make incredibly interesting videos if you give them the right concepts behind it so that they can make an interesting short video as opposed to an incredibly long sort of event. And assessed, because this can be assessed on multiple levels. All the different stages that we're doing when we're creating the movie can come through and be assessed, and you'll see those stages as we go through. So I put in objectives first because I think it's really important to let the kids know what they're going to be assessed on. If they're making a movie, are they going to be assessed on the content in the speech of the people in the movie? Is it going to be on a visual thing? Is it going to be on acting ability? So if they don't know these things, they don't know where to put their attention. All right, the absolute key thing that ties it all together is storyboarding. Has anyone ever watched those specials come after the DVD, how they made the movie? Has anyone seen a storyboard before? Can I see your hands if that's the case? Okay, so we've got a few people that haven't. Great. We're going to look at one in just a moment, but I'll just let you know what ties behind it. Storyboarding is going to help basically create what happens in the movie. For a movie, for a classroom, you tend to have one key idea. That's what the movie's about. The crisis, the challenge that makes it sort of interesting. And for students to develop that in a short period of time can be quite hard. So there's a few techniques you can do. You can link it to things that happen in their life that can be challenging, to movies, books, and other material that they've seen before. Because let's face it, there's nothing out there that's particularly original. And so that can help them get an idea of where to start. Now, different children will have different ways that they're comfortable with when they create a story. So my sort of initial thought when I went through this was to have them go and just quickly draw out what's going to happen in the scene. And so if I just flick across to the next thing, you'll see there I've got some beautiful people and I'm drawing what's going to be happening. For some children, that's actually hard to start off to visualize in that way. And so when you're creating, when you're getting children to create their storyboard, their script, however you wish to view what they're going to do, it's important to look at sort of, yes, you could do a visual approach. You could just go straight into what the people are going to say, assuming you have speech in the movie. And another one is text or a narrative approach. So if they're really struggling, often they'll have experience in writing stories, and jumping from that straight into making a storyboard can be really hard. And so they might actually be more comfortable just writing out a little story, which they then go and convert into a storyboard. And when we drop across, and my little drawing there, across. So this is a very simple storyboard, and it's something you can very easily either prepare for children or get them to create for themselves. I've got 2 squares, and these 2 squares are the different scenes in my movie. You can have sort of all sorts of reasons why you might have different scenes, but for children I think it's just good for them to understand that there's going to be different things happening in each scene, and that sort of helps them work out how to break up their story, and especially when they go and record, how they record it. So you'll notice a couple of different things here, and apologies for the handwriting, but it's not so easy on an iPad. So I've used different colours to link in my different people with the text, so that way it's really easy for me to go and say, oh yes, I know who's going to be saying what. And so often, if you've ever seen a script, they'll have name of the character and what they're doing. Here in the storyboard, it can be easy to just use a visual way to link them together. I've created 2 different scenes, as I said. The reason why I split this into 2 different scenes is we've got something happening up there. This is actually a special effect which we're going to apply. And if you ever have the trick of using a special effect, and with a lot of the applications out there, you can use green screening. So anyone blue screen or green screening, have we heard of this before? Anyone not heard of blue or green screening? Okay, great. So I'm not going to jump off of a 30-story building, right? That's not going to be good for me. But if I want it to look like I'm going to do that, I can put a solid single colour screen behind me and go, "Ah!" as I fall down. And then, using computer technology, which goes, oh, if I can see that green colour, I replace that with a photo or a movie of a building, and that way then it looks like I'm falling in front of the building. So that's used a lot, especially in movies with lots of animation and people mixed in together. So science fiction everywhere these days. Right, so that's my storyboard. Has anyone got any questions about the concept of a storyboard? Great. All right, so once you've got that, that then allows you to move on to the next step. Now, getting music in can really make a difference to a movie. Pretty much everything has some sort of music accompanying it because it builds emotion. It might give you a feeling for whether or not it's an action sequence by making it fast-paced. But there's a lot of things involved around getting it right. For children, I think the important thing is to set their expectations so that if they've got several different scenes in their storyboard, if you're working with students who are younger or less experienced, or you just have time factors, don't have them creating a music piece for every single scene. You're not going to have the ability to pull all that in the time frame that you've got. Software. So has anyone not heard of software, of music loops? Okay, great. So I've got a few there. So you'll notice this with various sort of techno music and some similar styles, that they will have a sound which repeats again and again and again. And often they'll add in extra little sounds and they will build up and create a complex piece of music from a very simple set of beginning pieces. So I'm just going to very quickly show... the reason why you might go and create your own music is because obviously there are copyright implications if you just go and grab wholesale from major artists and that sort of thing. There is a special sort of software license called, really for any sort of content called Creative Commons. And if you do a little bit of investigation, if I were you, I'd be writing that down, because Creative Commons is a license often which allows you to just grab some music or text or other material and use it exactly how you want without worrying about licensing. Now, so the app I'm going to show you just very quickly is called GarageBand, but again, there's so many different packages across all the different sorts of devices out there. All right, so this here is a drum machine. So what we're going to do is just drop in an instrument. All right, you see there's 2 sort of axes in which you can operate. The loud versus quiet and simple versus complex. And I can make some music by just building up these different components together. If I was recording this, I could change throughout the song, even just by dragging an instrument across over time. Perhaps the scene is getting higher paced, I can throw in an extra cymbals in there, and all of a sudden you're creating a complex thing that's telling you, oh, something's happening a bit faster. Now, we go back there. I've actually got one which I played around with a little bit earlier, so I'm just going to use that. And you can build up different types of instruments, so I'm just going to pull in here. So I've got a thing called autoplay on, and I'm going to record this. See how it all begins to come in together. Now I apologise for any musical talent, that was really bad change. And so what I've done is I've combined these two pieces, these two different instruments, so I can still edit them, adjust them, all that sort of thing, without sort of losing other work that I've done. So they're separate, what I call separate tracks of music. And what I'm going to do is just go through. So that's saved for me, and I'm going to send that through to my video editing package. So I'm just going to select this. And there we go. Okay, so I'm going to just bring it into my last project. There we go. And we'll just cover that little bit of video editing in just a moment. So go back here. And we're going to move on to recording. Now you notice I've done this in a bit of a different sort of order. You might have thought that I might record and set things and then do the music after. But by having sort of the limitations of perhaps the time of the music, or you've already set that, that really helps kids focus on where they're going with the movie. But you can, of course, just mix and match these things as you'd like. So when it comes to recording, who's going to be in your movie? So who's going to be playing the part? So that might be people at home, friends. If the recording is done within the classroom, then you might need to sort of have the students take turns as they record and put together their different components. And so therefore you have to bear in mind, what time is the recording part going to take up? The script. Now the storyboard, if it's detailed, might mean that you don't need a script, but you can go and convert that rough storyboard into another assessment piece or another practice piece for them to go and build up in more detail a script, and so they're getting the concept of different sort of text types as they go through. Location, so when the kids are developing the storyboard ideas and they want to have it on the moon, you have to think, where are they going to do that? Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with picking the moon. They could just have a black background when they do that. They could draw something up. They could use technology to, like I said, with green screening or blue screening to go and get that background in there for them. They can put together a few pieces of Lego and that creates the moon. So there's lots of different ways you can do that if you use your imagination. Equipment is really important. How are they going to record? You can't assume that if they're doing it at home that their parents can give them access to the recording device, but it is very common. So it may not actually hurt to find out from parents what sort of technology access the children will have. If it's within the school, they might have tablets, iPod-like devices, that sort of thing. But you can even do it using a lot of computers that have a webcam in there. It just makes it a little bit more complex when you're going ahead. And you can really sort of make things that extra level by doing some special effects. So this is an app, and I'm just going to show you how easily you can go in and add a bit of a special effect. So what I'm going to do is just record. Great, so we're just going to preview this and have a look. Alright, so there's a lot of them, some of them are more or less educational than others, but for children it gives a highlight. It's a way to really make them feel like they're doing something almost professional, and that gives them a great feeling of confidence when they do that. Okay, I'll talk about it at the end, but that's Action Movie FX. And another way to do to get video in there. Phil, can I borrow you for just a moment? Would you mind being an actor? So, obviously, the other thing, make sure you get permission when you record people.
What do I need to do?
You need to say, I'm Spartacus. So,
I am! Did you know that?
alright, so,
I'm Spartacus!
so we'll just check and see what we think of that.
I'm Spartacus!
Alright, so I've just put that in. When you come to getting all your components together, you're going to have a few things that you need to do after that. So, editing. This is where, as a teacher, you need to be a really good facilitator. You do not need to know how to do everything. In fact, the kids are quite good at working out how to do a range of things. But you need to make sure that you help them keep on track, because it's easy for this to become a 12-month endeavour like it is for mainstream movies. So, the order of the videos. If they've got a really good storyboard, that's not a big deal. They can work that out, drag those bits. They might have, for one scene, which was in the storyboard, they might have a few different video clips. But if you can get them to put everything in order in the movie creation software first, it makes it so much easier then for them to tidy up, navigate and trim, because it's all making good sense as they run through. So trimming, just the basic thing for cutting, perhaps the start, the end, the middle, stuff that you don't want. If someone sneezes partway through, you really don't want that in there. At the editing stage, you can add sort of a title at the start so everyone knows the name of the movie. End credits. Kids love end credits because it's like, yes, that's me, I'm so great! And of course we want to get our sound in there, either music we've created or some sound effects as well. So I'm going to go back in and we're going to have a look. This is one I sort of mostly prepared earlier, but I've got my video here and I don't want it in that order, so I'm just going to drag it, drop it in, and that gives me my video in the right spot. Now, I've got this down here, I've got a music track. That's not where I want it, because I don't want it to start where that first bit of video is. So I'm just going to move it to the start here. And I'm going to go along and I'm going to see where it all ends up. And I go, yeah, that's about fine. That's great. So here's my wonderful music. And yes, this is my 4-year-old daughter's toys. All right, so one thing we have to be careful with music is the volume as well. So I'm just going to go in there. I'm just going to bring the volume down a little bit, and we'll see how that goes.
I'm Spartacus!
All right, so I might just turn up just a little bit more, and
I'm Spartacus!
my voice acting career is about to take off. So, but if we watch this one here,
Spartacus!
and then, right, we don't want that. So if I just tap that, and with most of the applications around there, you can do things like get rid of the coughing, but also the dead space. You can split a track in two if you want to move them around. So you go, actually, I recorded this big long video, but I want to swap around where the bits go. You can do all that sort of thing. You can do freeze framing, which is actually, if you're creating an educational lesson, that might be really important to show something moving quickly, and then create a freeze frame so that the kids can see what's happening at a slower level. Now, we've got in there wonderful music, and I've actually put in there a little special effect already, which we'll go back in. Now, if we just listen to this, you'd heard just a little bit of a sound effect in there. So you can add in photos, but I'm going to focus on this one, on adding in a sound effect, just to build up a little bit of tension in there. So we're going to go and here we go, suspense rising. That sounds good. Now I don't want that at the start because I'm rising, I'm building up towards the suspense. So I'm just going to go and drag that about, yeah, that's probably just about right. And if I go and test this, oh, so loud. Let's just tap on that, bring our audio down, try that again.
Spartacus.
Alright, so you can see how we get in this component. It really does not take long to pull all that together. So drop back in through there. If anyone does have any questions, by the way, just put up your hand, and I'm absolutely happy to go through as we do it. So, presenting. This is a biggie because the students will have put their hearts, minds, souls, whatever, into making this movie. And if all you do is they give you a DVD or a digital file and you go away and mark it, you've lost so much out of what you've done. So you want to make the presentation of this a big deal, especially early on. So set a red carpet experience. Get the parents to come in. Have popcorn. Make this a big deal. Now, there are issues if you make it publicly available through things like YouTube, but look and see how other people have done this at other schools, because getting public feedback, even if it's just linking through with another school, through sharing those files, will give the students a great feeling of accomplishment. Assembly, make them available through the library. Does the library have a digital media section where the kids can go along and see cool things? Is it going to be that you're having the students create learning resources? Sorry guys, can you just keep that? Thanks. So that way you're actually creating content for, especially often it's really good for younger years to see older students explaining an idea for them, and so it can be a living piece of media. And getting a response, getting feedback, so have students sort of giving positive, hopefully, critiques, useful critiques of each other's work, allows them to learn to reflect on what they've done. In tools, one of the things you'll notice, I've got an iPad, but I've used this horrible cable to sit there and connect everything. So it's really important to know where you're going to be presenting to make sure that you've got the right tools to do that. And within schools, so things like iPods and tablets, iPads, Android devices, and that are becoming quite common to be able to do that. But you might want to go out to a smart board, to a TV screen, or to a data projector, and you need to know what's there to make sure that when you do it, it works well. So on the new USB keys, if you started this year, you'll have had, I think it's Microsoft Photo Story. Is that right, Phil? Microsoft Photo Story, is that the application?
It's on the USB.
Yeah. So, and you can download it if you're from before that, and that allows you to do this using still frames on Windows-based systems. And there's lots of applications on other ones that allow you to do the same. And so you don't even have to have motion standard sort of style movies. You can go to claymation. I've seen Lego figures running around doing things. Stop motion is a great approach as well, though bear in mind there can be time issues around some of that. So I mentioned Action Movie FX, which was the app that I used to do that, but there's lots of apps. There was a feature film that won a major award that was filmed, I think it was on an iPhone, using an app which mirrored what earlier sort of camera, physical cameras looked like when it was recorded through them. So there's heaps of amazing sort of things that you can do. Now, I will sort of say, first of all, any questions, but I think we should actually see the movie all together. Okay, so I'm just going to go back in, and no.
Which one of you is Spartacus?
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus. No, I'm Spartacus. Oh, I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. Nay, they're not Spartacus. I
There we go. Okay, so that's it really. Any questions? Anything? No, we're all absolutely silent. There's nothing at all you'd like to know?
Round of applause.
All right, then we're done.
Don't you want one of those boxes?